Thank you very much for listening to this week's share on the Sedra of Terumah, and we dedicate this learning for the safe and speedy release of all the remaining 130 plus hostages with grateful Hakoras Hatov recognition of the miracle that we were privileged to witness this week of the rescue of 2 of the hostages under very challenging circumstances, and the miracle that everybody, both the hostages and all of the soldiers involved in the rescue, were unharmed and have been reunited with their loved ones. This is epic proportions, and it's not just about numbers, and our hearts are with the remaining hostages, but each hostage that is miraculously saved, rescued, released is a cause, is a world and a celebration, and we are continuing to really focus all our efforts to do in whatever capacity we find ourselves. What the question that we ask is, what is my effort? What can I do? And I think that the words of this week's Sedra, the Sedra of Terumah, which begins the number of Sedras, Terumah, Tzapa, Yakel, Pakude, that are going to really focus on the nuts and bolts, literally, of the Mishkan. And on the one hand, we've mentioned, and I think I've referred to this book called Meleches HaMishkan, and we're able to construct accurate to scale models of all of the items, the construction of the courtyard, of the structure of the Mishkan, and of its contents. So this is something that we are actually not making, we don't see that in our day-to-day lives today, but there are so many lessons that we can glean from the language and the concepts that are used in the construction of this tabernacle, Mishkan, which was the portable home for Hashem in the wilderness, in the desert, and for a total of about 350 years until the construction of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple. And the words, the concepts that I want to focus on are the concepts of community, individuality, and precious stones. And weaving together from these 3 concepts that appear in the Sedra, we can find our mission in the crisis that we're facing today, and really use these tools to navigate our way through life in any situation. So first of all, this idea of community. And Rav Sachs Zatzal points out that during the time that the Bnei Yisrael were involved in the construction and production of the Mishkan, and really the illustrations that I just showed you, will have to pause and think a moment that the Bnei Yisrael were traveling through a wilderness, through a desert. They weren't a short car ride away from a craft shop where they could just get all the materials. And there are a number of midrashim that talk about how Yaakov Avinu planted trees that were going to be used for the construction of the Mishkan with the foresight of our father Yaakov. We have some of the materials, and the craftsmanship that was involved in the carpentry, in the metalwork, in the weaving, all of these things to create the most beautiful product that was pleasing to the eye, but was so practical, could be set up and dismantled with precise instructions as to how and who would dismantle, would carry, and then reassemble at the next destination. So an absolute feat of engineering, of artistry, and really a community working together. And this we can see, among other things, from the Posuk at the beginning, towards the beginning of the Sedra, which is actually, we find it chapter 25 verse 8, Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham. They shall make me a sanctuary so that I will so I will dwell among them. And this is on the surface level, referring to the actual building that would be the center of the camp of Israel during their sojourn in the wilderness and until the construction of the Bet HaMikdash. But it can also be thought of in a deeper level. And this is a level of how we make a dwelling place for Hashem, that He can dwell amongst us. So, as I mentioned, Rav Sachs said that when the Jewish people were involved in this project, they weren't arguing with Moshe Rabbeinu. They weren't arguing with each other. They had this common purpose, this purpose of constructing a building for Hashem, constructing a dwelling place, not just a building, but a place where the Shekhinah could reside. And it is this unity of purpose that is so crucial for all of us at all times. And that is how we actually have our greatest strength. And this is something that we can derive from these words and keep that message ongoing as we are united and we bring together our talents and help in whatever way we can in a time of national need, or even when the acute national need is not there, at a time when we are thinking, how can we bring Hashem inside us and how can we apply it to our daily lives? And the Gera Rebbe, Rabbi Aryeh Leib Alter, known as the Sfas Emes, writing in 1871 on a posuk, actually in Terumah, in this week's Sedra. And this is linking up with this concept of individuality, because everybody had to make this contribution. There's one of the translations that's given for the word Terumah, and embedded in the word Terumah is the word ram, which means uplifted or elevated. And this is something that we discover the whole time, that when we contribute to something, when we contribute to a greater cause, we uplift ourselves in that process. So if we look at an earlier pasuk in our Sedra, that's chapter 25, verse 2, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yikchu li Terumah, speak to the children of Israel and they will take for me a contribution, me'es kol ish asher yidveno libo, from every man whose heart will motivate him. And from this concept of every man whose heart will motivate him, we see the individual, the importance of the individual, of each person with their particular skill set, with their talents. That is how they are going to contribute to the overall project. And the internalization of this message, we see that from the use of the words yidveno libo, that his heart is motivating. He's not being coerced to give of his wealth, of his talents, of his time, but the secret of the success of this project, where Moshe Rabbeinu had to actually stop the people because they contributed above and beyond what was needed. And how often, would governments be able to say that when they have to collect taxes, that they have to tell the people, stop giving, we've reached our targets and we've got too much. I don't recall ever having heard those words from tax collectors. But in this situation, because you're tapping in to people and you are motivating them, then that is the secret of how you are going to be in a situation where you have this abundance of giving and the plenty supply of everything that's needed. But the Gera Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, actually brings a different way of understanding Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham, and the pasuk kol ish asher yidvena libo, and they will make for me a sanctuary and I will dwell inside them, and each person whose heart will motivate him. And he is actually linking it with the idea that when we make a blessing on the food that we eat and in any other circumstance that we are making a blessing, we are changing the status of the whatever object we are sanctifying with our blessing, because La Hashem ha'aretz umloha, to God is the world and all that's in it. And really, everything that we take, everything that we use, we are taking from Hashem's storehouse. And so how do we, in inverted commas, pay, but more than pay, how do we make it acceptable that we are able to go to Hashem's storehouse and take the world and on all of it, because there's also the idea that Hashem has given us the world to inhabit, to enhance, and to use. And so it is with the making of a blessing that we internalize that we are connecting with the creator of all divine matter. And when we do that, as we make this blessing, we are acknowledging that everything is coming from Hashem. And with that connection, that when we benefit from the fruits, literally, when we are eating fruit or vegetables or any food, and that is such a basic human need, and all the other situations where we have the privilege of making a blessing and acknowledging Hashem's presence in our lives, we are able to say that we are returning the gift to Hashem by acknowledging the oneness and the unity of Hashem in creation. And when we are using all of those aspects of creation with our blessing, with our connection to Hashem, we are enhancing, as it were, the things that Hashem has made for our benefit in this world. And this is a very simple way that we can, and simple, we've often remarked that simple does not mean easy, but in this way, this is one of the methods that we can employ to help our nation at this time, each and every one of us, at any opportunity we have to make a blessing, to connect to Hashem. And then during the course of our day, we are actually transforming all of the benefits, all of the pleasures of this world become much more than pleasures. They become an opportunity to connect with Hashem. And when we're all doing that on an intense level and on a very conscious level, then we are unaware of the miracles, we are unaware of the potential that these actions, that these words of ours, when we say the blessing with the right intention, with the right focus, and how we can actually affect such change and cause things to come about that in the absence of our efforts in the spiritual realm of making a dwelling place for Hashem inside ourselves, using the vehicle of the blessing as a way to do just that. So I think this is how we can apply the concepts in a more a spiritual and not literal way, but using the words, using the verses in the Sedra that refers to the dwelling place that was the Mishkan that is described in this week's Sedra. We are, with our blessings, making a dwelling place in ourselves for Hashem. And really, this is the object, one, if not the object, one of the objects of our purpose in this world. And I would like to conclude with a remarkable story based on the miraculous rescue that we witnessed this week, called Precious Stones. And we read about precious stones actually in this week's Sedra, that we talk about in chapter 25, verse 7, Avnei Shoham va'avnei miluim la'ephod v'lachoshen. Shoham stones and filling stones for the ephod and the choshen. And actually, in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, we have mention of Yahalom, which is a diamond, which is in the second row of the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And we can actually see it here. This is the diamond that Yahalom that I'm referring to. I am quoting from a short message given by Rabbi Effie Klein, and he talked about precious diamonds, because diamonds was the code for the hostages. And once the hostages were successfully released, the message that went out was, the diamonds are in our hands. And this is how the hostages were referred to. And the beautiful truth that is something that we can hold close to our hearts and treasure. The great treasure beyond the biggest diamonds weighing more than a field full of orange carrots, but this treasure of what happened, that every single person, every single of the hostages that we are so fervently praying for their release, please God, speedily and safely, and they are diamonds. And I would like to reference the other diamonds. And these are the diamonds of the soldiers who literally shielded the hostages with their own bodies. And one of the soldiers noticed that one of the hostages didn't have shoes, and he took off his boots and he gave them to one of the hostages, so that he was worried that the hostage would cut his feet on the shards of glass that they may have to tread over as they were making their escape. And I think when we think of precious diamonds, we can think of the precious diamonds in the breastplate of the Choshen, of the Kohen Gadol. We can think of the precious diamonds of all of Am Yisrael, of all of the people of Israel, and that is how we need to relate to one another. The precious diamond of all of the hostages, and the precious diamonds of the soldiers who are fighting so valiantly against evil, and please God, speedily we should see the safety and success of all of the objectives of the mission, and we should behold the miracles of our salvation, and please God, the rebuilding of the Mishkan for Hashem's presence in this world, that will be the Bet HaMikdash, where we will all have the merit to go and give thanks to Hashem. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.